Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's show. Our special guest is Rachel Spring. Thank you for being here, Rachel.
Hi, thanks for having me on, Judy.
Sure. It's so nice to meet you. I can't even remember how we met. It was probably maybe through a YouTuber support group, maybe
It
on
would have been
Facebook,
something. I know that we both started YouTube around the same time,
COVID
and
times. Yeah.
and we've been mutual subscribers for a while.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed your videos. As you know, there's multiple ones that I enjoyed, but I liked the one especially about the woman found in a barrel 30
Oh yeah,
years after she was killed. That
that was
was
a
such a
crazy
creepy
case.
story. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
What
was a
was her name?
crazy
It
case.
was Raina something. Yeah.
Raina, oh,
She
I
was
don't.
like
It's
a,
been so long ago, I can't remember.
yeah, I'll look it up
Um,
because I feel like, this is an important case
it is
too.
an important case.
Raina,
She was a Hispanic woman, and it brought
yeah,
up a lot of things for me about
yeah, Raina
yeah,
Marroquin.
Marroquin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and she was a beautiful woman, and it was. I think I talked about it in that video about her that I wondered if she had not been an immigrant, would she have been found sooner? Would
yeah,
people have cared? Because I think that
yeah.
people just assumed she went back home, you know,
Mhm.
and it's really sad because she was really making her way here, and yeah, that was a terrible that was a terrible case,
I
but
know.
I'm glad she was finally found.
Yeah, exactly. And her mom was still alive to find out that she had been stuck in a barrel and hidden in the crawl
And it
space of
crossed.
her ex-boyfriend's home for
Yeah,
all those years. Yeah.
yeah,
So
and
maybe we could talk about that later. But
yeah,
let's
sure.
get back to you. So would you like to introduce yourself to viewers?
Sure, I see my mom's in the chat. Hi, Mom. Um,
Hi, Mom.
uh, yeah, my name's Rachel Spring. My YouTube channel is Rachel_tries_hard. I picked that name because I literally had nothing. I had no name. At the time when I first started YouTube, I had no idea what I was even going to do.
Mhm.
I've been interested in true crime and stuff since I was a kid. Used to watch that kind of stuff with my mom, when I was little. But I was afraid to do it on YouTube because it can be really controversial. It can be a lot. It can be very emotionally draining. You can get a lot of weirdos in the comments. You can get a lot of criticism. But
Mhm.
after I spent, I don't know, a year or so just kind of making silly videos, really got my, what is the phrase? Got my feet wet.
Mhm.
Anyway, I got a little bit experienced with the editing aspect of it, the filming aspect of it, got comfortable talking to a camera, which Judy, you can, I know is awkward at first.
Yes, I still feel awkward, and people keep telling me, "Hey, your voice sucks. You're so awkward. You sound horrible. Go see a
It's
speech therapist." I'm like, "Hey, screw you."
re-
Like when I just talk to normal people in real life, I can talk okay, like to my
right?
clients and stuff. But it is scary to,
Mm,
especially being live and knowing that people are all staring at you and criticizing you and saying mean
yeah,
things, and you have to worry about legal liability since we're talking about criminal cases and I'm
absolutely.
talking about legal
Absolutely.
stuff. So,
hmm I
yeah.
always just try to throw in my opinion and allegedly a lot, you know,
Yes, allegedly, allegedly. Yeah,
and that's
this is
also
my
one of the
opinion,
benefits.
but yeah.
Yeah. It's also, one of the benefits of, mostly what I do is, kind of, filmed, edited, curated kind of videos. I don't do a lot of live streams, and that is, actually, I don't do any. This is my very first live stream, but, and that's one of the reasons why is because I get the opportunity to then clip out all those awkward moments
Yeah.
and clip out all those weird long pauses and awkward
Yeah, and
silences
coughing and
and
needing to
coughing.
drink some water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, if I did accidentally slip up and say something inaccurate or that is possibly going to open me up for liability, I can kind of edit around that. So that's nice. But anyway, eventually I just decided, I was like, I hated this. I loved making videos, but I hated what I was doing because it was nothing. It was of no substance
Just
whatsoever.
unboxing, right?
Unboxing kind of
Yeah.
videos and stuff like that. And it was fun in a way, but also it just didn't mean anything to me, and I really just wanted to talk about true crime, mystery stuff. That was where my real sort of passion was. And so I just took the leap and I said, this is how we're going to do it. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I did have a long break here from last October until here just a couple months ago. I was having I'm pretty open about the fact that I struggle with anxiety, depression, stuff like that. And I needed to take a nice long break to get my mental health arranged. But I'm back now, uploading regularly.
Well, I mean, just seeing you on YouTube, I never would have thought you had anxiety. You seem very calm and cool and like, hey, I'm just talking to the camera. That's
well, I have times where my anxiety is very, very debilitating. So it's not, I don't really have social anxiety. I have like a generalized anxiety disorder. I've been diagnosed with that since I was a very young teenager. And, it's just something that I deal with in my life. And I like to be open about it because I think that there can be a real stigma about that kind of thing. And it's important to me that people understand that it's totally normal. It's totally normal. And you can live your life and have moments where things are a little more difficult, and then you can get back at it, get yourself readjusted, see the therapist, take some medication, and whatever. So but yeah, I'm back now. Things are doing much, much better, and I'm happy to be back to a more regular uploading schedule because I really do love doing this.
Yeah, it's great. And plus people get to learn about so many different interesting cases from your nicely edited videos. I know how long it takes to put things together. So, it's really a true hobby, or, it's your pet project, right?
Yeah.
So you feel really proud when you finally put it together.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I find that for me, part of the important thing to me, two important aspects. Number one, I think that there's a lot of true crime out there that's very sensational. They try to make things as sensational as possible to kind of keep you hooked and get clicks and make things very graphic and shocking. And it's important to me not to kind of feed into that. It's graphic and shocking most of the time, all on its own. You don't have to do anything extra to it. It's already, most of these crimes are already very terrible. You don't have to add that extra level of sensation. And I also try to decenter the criminal if I can. Obviously we want to talk about their background and things like that, but I don't want any people get out here and they romanticize these serial killers and things like that. And, you end up with, people almost, I don't want to say worshiping, but, I see people with like serial killers on t-shirts and cups, and that's not for me. If that's what you're into.
It's like giving them publicity. Some of these killers probably do enjoy it. It's like, hey, now people know me and I'm famous and stuff in some weird perverted way.
And in a way, that's what a lot of them want. They want that notoriety. And I want to talk about it, but I want to talk about the victims. I want to talk about their lives. They were human beings, real human people. And so I want to focus on that as much as possible. But I also like to talk about the legal case as much as we know about it. And I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a lawyer like you, but I think that it's interesting to talk about, okay, what kind, if there was any, what kind of defense did they launch? What were they trying to do? What were they trying to, prove? What kind of case did the prosecution put out there that, got them thrown in jail or whatever? And that aspect is very interesting to me. So I like to try to focus on that as well.
I see. Yeah. And in your bio, you mentioned that you studied anthropology in college, right? So do you think that kind of led to you thinking that you were really interested in society and how people react to things and crimes?
Yeah, I've always sort of been interested in the condition of being human, and it's a really unique, being part of humanity is a really unique thing to
Mhm.
every species on this planet. And I'm always interested in what it is that makes us tick. I'm interested in psychology and things like that. So uh, I did go into anthropology. I studied that for a little while. I could have easily gone into psychology or history or law. All of those things are of great interest to me, and I probably would have been okay to study any of them. What I realized is that my brain does not seem to function well in academia. So I
Oh,
did leave the program before
oh,
I completed.
okay.
But I in many ways I'd like to maybe try to complete a degree at some point, but first I have to figure out how to make my brain do school properly because it's a
Mhm.
little all over the place.
Yeah, I see. Okay, well, I wouldn't have known, because whenever you put together a video, it is very well, structured and
Mhm.
well edited and stuff. So,
Well, thank you.
so let's talk about this Ruby Frank case. Like, how did you
Sure.
even know about Ruby Frank in the first place?
So the Frankies are an
Oh,
interest.
Frankie.
Yeah,
Okay.
they pronounce it Frankie. I thought it was Frank too until I started hearing
Okay.
them say it all the time. So it's interesting. I am Oh, my mom's my mom's saying she shouldn't have let me watch some of the movies she let me watch when I was
Oh,
young. Um,
okay.
so, the Frankies run this channel called 8 Passengers, or they
Mhm.
used to.
Yeah.
And it's a family vlog channel, and it got really well known for being particularly egregious. I think most people know at this point kind of about it, but it's a channel that I had known about for several years because of this sort of egregious behavior that they exhibited towards their children. They were certainly some of the most prolific of all of these family vloggers that really rose to popularity in that sort of late 20 teens period.
Mhm.
That was a really sweet spot for family vloggers. And we had several cases. So there was a case of a channel called Daddy 05.
Oh.
That guy actually lost custody of his kids it was a family prank channel.
Mhm.
But in my opinion, it was a child torture channel.
Oh,
It was
that's horrible.
horrible. Anyway, he did end up
Mhm.
losing custody of his kids. And then there was a woman who had fostered a whole bunch of kids. And the name of the channel escapes me.
Mhm.
But she also, similar situation, she was prosecuted because,
Wow.
she was locking these kids in closets and then just bringing them out to perform like monkeys and locking
Oh.
them back in the closet, withholding food to get
Oh,
them to perform like she wanted them to.
yeah.
And you saw a lot of similarities with Ruby Frankie and her children. She the main thing is that she chooses everything she's uploading, you know? And it was so egregious to most people, the things that she was saying and treating her kids. And those are the things that she felt it was okay to share with the public. So it
Mhm.
gets you thinking, well, what kind of things is she doing that she's not sharing? Because if she'll share with the public that she's withholding food from her children, if she'll share if she'll share moments where her kids are upset because they're saying, I don't have any friends, I don't have anybody to hang out with, I don't have any friends.
Yeah.
She's taking electronics away for literally the whole summer and telling that her, 8, 9-year-old kid that it's because
Mhm.
they're irresponsible, and she never really elaborates on what they did in order to get this horrible punishment, and you can see how sad they are, and I'm like, and she thinks that's okay. That's okay to share with the whole world.
Yeah, that it's entertaining and it makes her look good because it
Yeah.
supposedly makes her look like a great parent to be disciplining them.
That's right, and I'm thinking again, and she knows it's not right, like, she knows that most people don't think it's right. She's holding herself on a pedestal. She's saying, "In my opinion, I am strong enough as a parent to do these things that most people wouldn't have the guts to do to their kids," right?
Mhm.
And then she's sharing those things. But again, we all wonder, those of us who've known about this case, we all wonder, okay, well, if you're comfortable sharing that your 5-year-old didn't pack herself a lunch, and because of that, she's going to have to go hungry. and you hope nobody gives her food at school so she can learn her lesson. You're comfortable sharing that on the internet. What are you doing that you're not sharing? You know? And now we kind of know. Now we kind of know what she may have been up
duct
to.
taping your kids and starving them, and
Yeah.
you know, what was
And
it again? Was it Jody or Ruby who was like cleaning the kids' wounds with like some sort of weird substance?
Yeah,
I
so
can't
they found
remember.
something that is something that has come out. That's the problem with doing these ongoing cases, is that so much has happened since I made that video.
Yeah.
So they did find a substance. One of the kids apparently told the police that she was cleaning their wounds with some kind of like caustic substance, and then they did find something in the home, along with some bandages and things that did look like it was like honey and cayenne pepper and
Yeah, yeah, that
things
sounds
that aren't
right.
really
Yeah.
suitable for cleaning wounds of children. They found a safe room, some kind of safe room in her house that locked from the outside, that they are
Oh,
theorizing she may have kept the children in there for some time. Also, it turns out it has literally just come out that at least some of the kids may not have even been with Jody, because they were found. It was reported originally that they were all found at Jody's house.
yeah, it was the
In
therapist. Yeah.
Yeah, which is the therapist, which absolutely insane that that woman is
Yeah.
a real licensed therapist. But it's now been reported that Ruby had called this other woman, whose name escapes me, who is listed as the president of Connections. Now, up until this point, I think everybody thought, well, Jody Hildebrand is Connections. Well, it
Mhm.
turns out it's like a whole organization, it looks like. At very least, there's this other woman who is listed as the president of Connections. And she was called by Ruby to go pick her kids up from Jody's house. So at
Oh,
least a couple of the kids were found with this other woman who is the president of this Connections organization. And this Connections thing is looking more and more like a real organized cult with almost a cult within a cult. So,
oh, is it this woman, Pam Butcher?
yeah, Pam
Yeah.
Botch.
So
Yeah.
that's the woman in this picture, or it looks like her. Well,
So, no, this is Jody and Ruby here in
yeah,
this
that's
picture you're
Judy and Ruby. Okay,
showing. Mhm.
because I'm looking. Oh, yeah, Pam Butcher is this brown-haired woman.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And she
Okay.
is actually listed as the president of Connections.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah,
Yes, Joe
because I did
Spring.
read that even Ruby's sister said it was like a cult, this whole counseling, family counseling practice that
Yeah.
was very heavy-handed and actually
It's
screwed up a lot of people's marriages.
Yeah, really badly. And I think it'll be interesting as this progresses. One of the things that I'm interested in is hearing sort of what's going on with Jody. I mean, the woman is Joe Spring here. That's my mom. Says she's a full-on psychopath, and I tend to agree. She certainly seems very unstable.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds, but it certainly is looking it's looking not very good. And I'm sure that Jody, I know a lot of people are really trying to shift all of the blame onto Jody Hildebrandt
Mhm.
as this person who the fantastic adventures. Thank you. Thank you. Um
What's Green Spring Room on the floor?
I think it's a typo.
Oh, okay. Not open to use the bathroom or eat unless they perform. Okay, so that's the one where the lady got charged with child abuse also.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, and she was, and they were like foster kids or adopted kids, and she had a whole
oh,
bunch. I mean, it was terrible.
so mean. Yeah.
It was horrible. It was horrible. And you find this over and over, but the thing that's most surprising to me is, I'm sorry, let me get back on track here.
Okay, sorry.
I'm so sorry. So Jody Hildebrand, I think, is an interesting story, and everybody wants to blame her, right? You can see Kevin Franke is trying to blame her,
Mhm.
and all of these things. She brainwashed us, whatever. And I can understand to a certain respect how a person says, well, this person is a licensed professional, and these people that I've trusted, the bishops at my church, whatever, have recommended her.
Mhm.
Um, And so I'm going to trust what she has to say. But at a certain point, your instinct has to kick in, right? And it does not absolve you of responsibility to your children.
Mhm.
I think that compounded with what we saw from the Eight Passengers channel before Jody Hildebrand had anything to do with anything, it's
Mhm.
clear that both of the Frankies were okay with pretty questionable treatment towards their children, including putting their whole lives on the internet for a bunch
Yeah.
of strangers to see.
Embarrassing them,
Yeah,
sticking the camera right into their faces all the time,
absolutely. And there's
humiliating
even a
them.
clip that I shared on my video, um, where Ruby is filming herself and she's saying, when I started this whole vlogging thing, I was so afraid. I just woke up with this fear that I was going to wake up one day and my kids were not going to be doing anything and they were just going to be staring at a wall. And I wasn't going to have that. Yeah, I wasn't going to have anything to film
No
because my kids weren't
content.
going to do anything. And she said, that's my biggest fear.
Yeah, really.
And I thought, wow, as a parent, your biggest fear is that your kids are going to be boring and you're not going to have content to make.
Yeah.
Weird.
Because so so it sounds like the husband had some job teaching for a little while at Brigham Young, right?
Yeah, I guess that he's like a professor of some sort at Brigham Young. It seems like a pretty standard one income household. Dad was a
Mhm.
professional, mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And that is almost always the case with family vlog channels.
Mhm.
Mom's trying to figure out a way to I think sometimes it starts very, very innocently. It starts
Mhm.
very innocently. I'm gonna film my kid at the park. I'm gonna film my kid with
Yeah,
playing
we're
with
having
toys.
fun.
We're
Yeah.
having fun and
Yeah.
everything's okay. And it just spirals out of control. But I think that sometimes it's a really concentrated effort at a money-making opportunity to make money off of your kids. And you get into all kinds of other issues, like the fact that somebody did some research and it showed that on a lot of these channels that feature children, something like 80% of the subscribership is men.
Really?
And
No way. I wouldn't have thought that.
and so now you can look at that and you can say, okay, well, some of that, right, is going to be kids subscribing under their parents' accounts,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
And that is true. But it is also absolutely true that these kinds of channels, especially the ones that are willing to do things like, bath time routine and,
Oh.
stuff like
Mhm.
that, it is well known that these are shared among predators.
Like these
And
like perverts that oh, and I did want to mention there was some family channel. Now I can't even remember the name of the family, but they did again have like a bunch of kids and they would do these like stupid things where they're just like running around playing hide and seek in their big
Mhm.
house and stuff. And then they had this daughter who looked like she was maybe 13 years old and she was like going around in a swimsuit or some
Mhm.
skimpy outfit. I'm like, what the? Who told her to wear that? Obviously, they think that it's going to get more viewership, but she looked like she was 13 years old.
Yeah, and they do, and this is the insidious part is because of the content that they make, and again, I do think that sometimes it's incredibly insidious. I do
Mhm.
believe that sometimes parents are doing this on purpose. They know
Mhm.
exactly what they're doing. They just care about getting more views, and so if that means that they, showcase their, pubescent daughter wearing
Mhm.
some skimpy outfit on their channel, or if it means that they're doing even if you're putting your baby in a bathing suit, there are people out there who
Yeah.
want to see that, you know what I mean?
Oh God.
And it's
Awful.
really disturbing and disgusting and terrible, but I also think it's something that we can't shy away from. We need to talk about it because people need to understand, and again, I think that the vast majority of people are really well-meaning, and I
Mhm.
think that they think that they're doing an okay thing.
Mhm.
And I think that, if you're not a sick, disgusting person, it is not necessarily always going to occur to you how many horrible, sick, disgusting people are out there. So you think
Mhm.
you're just sharing a cute video of your kid and you're like, oh, I'm going to put them in their swim trunks. So they're not showing anything.
Yeah.
And maybe you innocently don't realize what you're doing. But I do know that there are some people out there who know exactly what they're doing They are trying to use plausible deniability and say, no, 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 we're not looking, but they are doing things that predators specifically look for. And people like you and I, who are not predators, wouldn't even know. We would not even know that that is something that predators look for. Or they'll
Mhm.
put things in their thumbnail or in the title of the video or in the description of the video that is like a dog whistle for predators, so that
Oh,
they know that that's a channel where they can get the content that they're looking for. It's absolute exploitation, but there's also not a lot that anybody can do about it because it's not technically illegal.
yeah, because it's not real nudity or anything that's overtly sexual, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, but except for these perverts that want to see kids or something. Yeah.
Somebody's mentioning acidic, spicy food and filming at them and laughing at them is problematic, and I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really do agree. That yeah, scaring toddlers, all these things. Again, if it happens innocently, it can happen. Toddlers are funny. They do funny things. And sometimes your toddler takes a bite of a lemon and makes a squishy face and it's funny and you tell grandma about it and you guys giggle about it. When you come to the point where you're trying to share that with the world to get the whole world, it's just, can we keep some things sacred? We don't need to get the video on your 14-year-old daughter when she's shaving her legs for the first time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But these kids grow up that way. They have this camera in their face from day one, usually. And they don't know some of them literally don't know any different. That's just been always how it is. And they're I don't know. I guess from a legal perspective, in my opinion, there just need to be more laws to protect these kids. They are child influencers. They are working children, and there's no laws at all to protect them. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, okay. Yeah, I haven't thought deeply like what kind of laws we could have that are narrowly tailored to
yeah,
protect children. Whereas on the other hand, sometimes people just want to memorialize their child's life. So,
absolutely.
yeah, but again, that's basically up to the parent because, I had this former coworker who is very opinionated about everything. She's a divorce lawyer too, like I am, but she's very strident. So
Yeah.
she would always be like, "I don't like it. I don't think parents should put up their pictures of their children at all without the kids. The kid can't consent. I don't like seeing it on Facebook when people put pictures of their kids even." So I'm like, really? Like sometimes people are just happy or they're proud of something their kid did. So I think
Yeah.
that's okay, especially if you have a private Facebook profile. But
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes it does seem kind of oversharing.
Yeah, it
Depending
definitely
on
can.
what you do.
I think it's a fine line. In a way, I can understand that perspective. I do share pictures of my kid occasionally on my private personal Facebook page so that his grandparents, his great grandparents, family members that we don't see that often might share in some of his accomplishments. Um, but I can understand the perspective of where are you sharing those pictures and under what circumstances, right?
Mhm.
So and so, graduated from kindergarten, great, right? So and so pooped their pants, and here's their poopy pants
Oh,
picture. Maybe no, you know what I
disgusting.
mean?
Yeah,
It's
I've
just
seen some
people
people.
do that,
Yeah,
and I think it does raise questions of that child's right to privacy
yeah.
later down the road. So again, here's a cute moment. I'm proud of my
Mhm.
child, whatever. When we start getting into like almost shaming that kid and things like, oh, so and so was so bad today, look what he did, and blah blah blah, maybe we're crossing a line there. But
Mhm.
again, some of this is just I'm not suggesting that we make laws about that kind of thing for sure, but a
Mhm.
lot of these family vlog channels are quite large and they operate under like an LLC,
Mhm.
so they are in fact a business. It's not just a family uploading videos.
Yeah.
And I do think that legally there is something that we could do, that we could say, hey, if your child is operating, making content as a child influencer under the name of your LLC, they
Mhm.
are a child actor.
Yeah.
And we need to
Mhm.
have laws to protect, we need to have laws that categorize child influencers as child actors or something like that, so that we can have some laws to protect them. make sure that
Mhm.
they are getting some kind of money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And
And not working round the clock every
and
day.
you know what I'm saying? And that does happen, right? Because there's nothing except the parents' own moral compass, and we all know that among any group of people, there are going to be certain people who are morally corrupt.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, or they just get swept away because they're getting sponsorships and free
sure,
trips and free stuff and you know,
absolutely.
yeah, because so I watched a lot of John and Kate plus 8 back in the
Mhm.
day when they were on. That was before I had kids, so I had
Yeah.
free time to watch TV. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I watched that and I also have read like yeah, I think I did read Kate's book. I feel embarrassed saying that, but I did read Kate
Oh, you should
Goss's.
never be embarrassed that you explored anything. I don't believe in being embarrassed for exploring
Yeah, but
interesting
but
things.
but reading like the whole saga of these poor kids and all the
Uh-huh.
drama after the father left or they split up and got divorced, and now some of the kids don't even talk to the mom,
Yeah.
and it's just really sad because it sounded like their lives were being recorded nonstop, and the producers would regularly have meetings with the parents or even with the kids, probably telling them this is what we're going to do, these are the ideas, let's have you guys go on a trip to this or you guys do this, so your whole life is being controlled by your show. It
Yeah,
was sad. And
absolutely.
then of course I think the older girls really hated it. They didn't like it, but they had no say.
Yeah, none of these kids like it. As more and more of them are
Yeah.
getting older
Mhm.
and able to choose for themselves what they want to do, more of them are talking about how much they hate it. And yeah, I think it did start with things like that. And in that situation, you at least hope that somebody's looking out for the welfare of the kids because you've got all these adults, producers, directors. I mean, TLC is big, that's a big channel, and really nobody is. In fact, I seem to remember the family used to live in California and then they moved to like
Mhm.
Arizona or something like that.
Oh.
Maybe you could tell me, I don't know.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Well,
but
I thought John was from Pennsylvania. Why do I keep
maybe,
thinking Pennsylvania?
but I
But I don't
remember
know.
them talking about at some point they moved the family and it was like this big thing on the show is that, we're moving
Oh,
and they
okay.
made it sort of for a job or something. I can't remember exactly the details. I never watched it, but basically what I heard was somebody talking about, well, they did that because the child labor laws were different. So when
Oh.
they were living in like California or whatever, there's a lot of laws about child actors and how many hours they could work, whatever. And then so they moved the family to a place where, because child acting, obviously in California, very prevalent, right?
Yeah.
Hollywood and all of that. Well, other states, like I live in Indiana, we don't have laws about child actors other than
Yeah, you don't
federal
have
laws,
them
but
mostly.
we don't have any
Yeah.
stringent state laws about how many hours child actors can do things. We don't have any child. I mean, we do have some, I'm sure, but it's not very prevalent here. And so
Mhm.
they moved someplace where they could ignore those kind of working hours and
Mhm.
things like that. There are some federal laws about saving money, but none of that applies to the internet.
Yeah,
you know?
because it's just free for all. Like you want to set up your YouTube channel, go for it. It takes a lot
Yeah.
to take down a channel. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but getting back to Ruby and Kevin,
Yeah.
so like, so what happened to the two older kids? The two older kids have spoken out against Ruby, right? And maybe even the dad have.
So the one older kid has the oldest girl, her name's
Mhm.
Sherry.
Yeah.
And she's 20 years old. She's at college. Also, another sort of breaking news story is that it turns out that the dad at some point tried to have Sherry arrested
What?
because apparently their house at some point was broken into
Mhm.
and some electronics were taken from the home.
Oh,
And he apparently called the police and told the police that it was his older daughter, Sherry, who had done that
oh,
she was not allowed in the house and he wanted her to be arrested. And I
oh.
don't know if that happened before or after Ruby was arrested. He's
Mhm.
saying now through his lawyer that they're working
Mhm.
on repairing their relationship.
Hmm.
But obviously that relationship at some point has been damaged. Ruby herself has said that after her kids turn 18, they are no longer welcome in her home.
Oh, that's
So the
horrible.
20-year-old,
Yeah.
yeah, she seems to be she's has claims that she's tried to call CPS, she's tried to get the police involved. She
Mhm,
put up a post on Instagram after Ruby's arrest
mhm.
and, and said, "Finally, we've been trying to get this done for years." So she's very happy to see her mother behind bars, which I think really says something,
Yeah, and
because
she's only like 20 or 21, so how
yeah,
could she really take care of her siblings? Do you
yeah.
know the
Well, and she
answer to
wasn't allowed in
this?
the house. She wasn't
Yeah.
allowed to come see them even. She
Oh.
was persona non grata. Nobody's heard from the boy as far as I know, the older boy who's 18. I've
Mhm.
heard he's living with Kevin, Frankie, and has been for some time, that he
Oh.
chose when he turned 18 to go live with Kevin, but I have not seen, and obviously I haven't had time to consume every single bit of media about this, but I've tried to stay up to date as much as I can. And as far as I can tell, um, yeah, the police said they broke the door during a search warrant, and or at least that's what's being reported. The door was broken down at some point. We don't really know when, and we don't know why.
Mhm,
100%.
mhm.
Nobody seems to know. But yeah, there's this sort of contentious thing. But Kevin's out here trying to be father of the year,
Yeah, but he's not because a
and
lot of people are down on him and saying he should be arrested too.
yeah, he's kind of pissing me off. I mean, I understand. Again, I do understand that when, you go to church and you trust the people, the leadership at your church, and the leadership at your church says you need to go see this woman, and this woman has credentials from the state, so
Mhm,
you think you can trust her. And she says to do X, Y, and Z. And I can understand the perspective of saying, I thought I was doing the right thing. But I do think that when it gets to when if you go back in time, and we don't know exactly how long they've been seeing Jody Hildebrand as a therapist. But if you go back in time, you can see that Kevin is 100% participating in everything going on that channel,
mhm,
and exploiting the kids, in my opinion, and in humiliating them on camera, and he's totally fine with this, and I do believe that that is pre Jody's influence.
mhm,
And then you also have to question, when Jody is saying things like, if it's true, by the way, we only know this from Kevin's lawyer, so assuming it's
mhm,
true, if Jody's saying things like, "Oh, well, you have to leave your family, you're harming them, you have to leave, you're not allowed to have contact with your children," and this has gone on for 14 months,
mhm.
you have to start to wonder about somebody's decision-making capabilities, right? You have to
Yeah.
start wondering about their mental state. And, maybe before we give these kids back, we do some parenting classes or something, because I know plenty of people who you could tell them, you got to stay away from your kids for 14 months, and they would say, like hell. And they would be in court going,
Mhm,
let me see my kids.
mhm,
So I do think that the fact that Kevin doesn't seem to at any point, he just totally trusted Ruby, right? And now he's trying to say, well, this was all Ruby. It had nothing to do with me. Okay, well,
mhm.
if you knew that and she was capable of that, then why weren't you going to get your kids? Why were you not insisting on seeing your kids? It just to me shows somebody who is not making good decisions.
Yeah.
And that should be evaluated. I'm not saying he shouldn't have his kids. I'm just saying I'm glad it looks like somebody's trying to evaluate that before they just hand them over to him.
Mhm. That's
Also,
right.
they're not divorced. He and
Yeah.
Ruby are still married.
Mhm,
And it gives me some concern that if she gets out, he's going to go, well, all of this was Jody's fault. And they're going to try to be one big happy family again. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd like to
Well,
see some steps like some divorce papers.
yeah, who knows? But yeah, so I Googled it quickly. It said the four Frankie children are uh, who are living at home were taken into the care of Utah's Child and Family Services.
Yes, they're still in
Although
DCS
that
custody.
was September 6th. So
Yeah, they as of right now, all four of the minor children are in DCS custody.
yeah. Well, that's sad. Wouldn't you think that some of the relatives would take them?
Well, just because they're in DCS custody does not necessarily mean they're not living with a relative.
Oh, okay. They
So
could have
as
been
far I
placed.
don't know how Utah works, but I
Yeah.
know that like in Indiana where I live, they could place the kids with a family member or something, but they're still technically in DCS custody because they're not giving custody. They're still the responsibility of the state. So
Yeah.
they're still even if they're with an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent. But I think there's also some concerns because both of Ruby's sisters are also family vloggers.
Yeah, that's
That's
what I
also what
heard.
they do.
Have you seen their
Bonnie,
vlogs?
huh?
Have you seen their vlogs or
I
YouTube?
checked out a little bit just to see what it
Mhm.
was about. It's very boring. I hate that kind of content. It's
Yeah,
just
it
so,
is. It's aggravating. It's like, who
it's
cares? I don't
who
want to watch some
cares?
family and their weird drama, you know?
Yeah, like and it's just so it's like, oh, we're cooking the kids dinner, and oh, like I got my own kids to feed. I
Yeah,
got my own kids to
I
do their
gotta buy
laundry.
my
I don't want to watch
groceries
yours.
and do some freaking laundry, you know?
Like, that's literally my life. Why do I don't want to watch you do it? But yeah, so I did check it out a little bit. I actually couldn't find Bonnie's channel.
Mhm,
I don't know what it's called. The other sister's channel is just her name. So I was
mhm,
able to find it because she gave an interview kind of thing about it. And they're both like, we're shocked, we're shocked, we're shocked. But I'm
mhm.
like, you're kind of doing the same thing. I mean, I get that the punishments and whatever are different, but it seems much more innocuous. They're not focusing on like, ooh, we're the greatest parents.
Yeah.
They seem to be focusing on like summer fun and barbecuing on Saturday, and it's much more innocuous. But I'm like, I still see your little performing monkeys here all the time, your kids,
Mhm,
they're trying to sleep and you've got the camera in their face, and
mhm,
it's just distasteful to me. I don't like it, and I think it's weird that her whole family have
mhm,
decided to go this direction, and they seem to have all started their channels at about the same time. So,
mhm. Yeah, it's kind of like, why don't they get real jobs? You
yeah.
know, they think, well, I mean, but it did work for Ruby and Kevin for a while because they were making six figures, I
Yeah.
read. You
Something
know, they
ridiculous. I mean,
great
she
money.
claims she was making millions and millions of dollars. I'll bet you the kids haven't seen a single penny of that. But when you have a situation where a lot of family members are also involved in this vlogging situation, I could see why the courts wouldn't want to say, "Oh, well, we'll just give you to your aunt." Right? Because they're like,
Mhm,
"Okay, well, is your aunt going to shove a camera in your face?" They just at this point, and you probably know more about this than I do because you're a lawyer, but my
mhm,
guess would be that they're looking and they're saying, "We don't know who is implicated in this crime. We don't know who knew what and when, you know?
mhm,
Um, and they probably need to do really vet some people before these kids have clearly been in a really traumatic situation. And I think the oldest of the minor kids is like 16, you
mhm.
know? So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I really feel terrible for them, and I hope that they're gonna be okay, and I'm glad that they got out of that situation.
Yeah, it just seems so awful, especially since in social media or on YouTube, they always had to look so happy. You know, everybody's perfectly dressed, the
Mhm.
makeup, the nice clothes, the nice house.
Yeah,
So,
and that's how they all are. I mean, if you think about your average day and
mhm,
how many moments in your average day are worth sharing on the internet for
mhm,
entertainment purposes.
mhm,
There are whole days that go by that nothing happens in my life that would ever do that. And guess what? That's true for family vloggers too.
uh-huh,
They have to manufacture entertainment,
mhm,
and they have to make it seem like this is just their normal life. And I do think that when they get to a certain point, they are going on brand trips and people
mhm,
send them things to try and all of that stuff. And that's all well and good. But,
mhm.
oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah, I can see that,
I could
that it could be
absolutely
a
see that being
religious
true.
thing where,
Yeah.
wasn't it just like with the Duggar family? Did you ever watch that
I didn't
reality
ever
show?
watch the show, but I'm familiar with it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I used to watch it sometimes too, way back in the day when I had too much
Mhm.
time on my hands.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did seem like it was supposed to be sort of like propaganda almost for their religion because
Mhm.
it was presented as a wholesome family. These are family values, and the kids are so well behaved, and
Yeah.
everybody works together for the family. Everybody's happy,
Yeah.
doing these traditional roles and,
Mhm.
you know, yeah,
I can
being
see
all,
it. I can absolutely see it, and I wouldn't doubt a single bit that they did get some kind of, uh That's interesting. I wouldn't be at all surprised. The Mormon church, I mean, all for the vast majority of Protestant Christian religions, they are evangelical. They do go and evangelize. They want to bring people into the religion, and so it would make sense to me that family vloggers, that's a perfect little propaganda machine, right? And
Mhm.
so if you can say, oh, look at this wonderful big happy family, oh, by the way, we're Mormon. It's the same
Mhm.
thing that Scientology does with their concentration on getting celebrities. That why are so many celebrities Scientologists? It's because
Mhm.
Scientology targeted celebrities, right?
Mhm.
To make them seem legitimate and to bring them more money, etc. So that would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, I see. Wow. So, well, what about Jody? So there's this rumor that Jody and Ruby actually started having a romantic relationship. Do you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Well, here's the thing. Uh, I don't know. I want to be very careful with things like this because I think that it can really easily cross over into the realm of homophobia,
Mhm.
and sort of this idea that somehow the fact that she may have been having some kind of lesbian affair makes her extra bad. And I
Mhm.
I don't think that at all. But I do think that I think that we see a lot of her, the Mormon church in general, but especially Jody, so much of her practice that we're hearing from her former patients seems
Mhm.
to focus on sexual sin, right? Um,
Mhm.
Masturbation. I don't know what I can say on your channel.
Okay, well,
um,
we're further on in the live stream, so I think it's okay to say some words. But
okay.
I had our
So,
live stream shut down by YouTube just in the middle of the live stream because I was talking about some Korean drama show about law school where the professor was talking about a RAPE case.
oh yeah,
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 so I
that's a
was like,
biggie.
what? My live stream got cut off. It was crazy.
So I will say
Yeah.
self-gratification and
Okay.
corn,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
These are things that
PORN. Yeah.
these are things that she focuses on a lot. And of course, homophobia, right? She's very anti-gay, anti-queer, anti-LGBT, and all of those things. And I do think that we see a large crossover between people who are drawn to the, because there's other aspects of Mormonism, there's other aspects of Christianity, right? So people
Mhm.
who choose to focus on that aspect of it, well, that's usually because they've got something within themselves that they're struggling with. Again, I'm not a psychologist. It just seems to me that that's often the way. And so it wouldn't surprise me. And I know that people have said that, she's said some things. She certainly seems to be um a misandrist. She does not seem to like men very much.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know if there was anything physical, but it certainly seems to me that she creates an emotional relationship with these women. She seems to select certain women to separate from their husbands and then have a special relationship with. We talked about on my channel, we talked about Adam Steed, and unfortunately, I linked the video on the Mormon Stories podcast, but they were forced to take that video down. Somebody
Oh,
actually is taking legal action against them for having that
oh,
interview with Adam.
who's Adam?
So Adam Steed was a former patient of Jody Hildebrand,
Oh, oh, okay.
and he went on the Mormon Stories podcast and gave about a 5-hour interview
Mhm.
all about everything that happened, and he told all about how he actually sued Jody,
Mhm.
and she lost her license for about 18 months.
Mhm.
Part of that was because she shared his personal, confidential, private therapy protected information with
Mhm.
the conduct board or whatever at Brigham Young and got him kicked
Oh,
out of
okay.
school.
Yeah, I read about that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty awful.
So I
Yeah.
watched that whole interview. It was heartbreaking. It's down now, unfortunately. Hopefully they'll be able to put it back up soon. But he talked about how she caused the separation between he and his wife, started making accusations towards him that were untrue, kept them apart, and then while still seeing the wife, as a patient, hired her to do work for her,
Mhm.
which they call in therapy, they call that a dual relationship. And
Mhm.
it's very unethical. Like, you're not
Yeah,
supposed to have a dual
definitely.
relationship with your patients.
Mhm.
Um, I imagine that you as a lawyer, probably, if you had a client, you probably couldn't
Mhm.
then also hire that client to
Oh,
do
yeah.
work for you,
Yeah, exactly. Well, that client
It's
is my
it's
client.
a
So,
huge
yeah.
conflict, right? So,
Mhm.
anyway, so and there are other stories of men who have kind of been separated from their family, but it's not every couple that she does this with.
Mhm.
It seems to be select couples, and then she develops this special relationship with the wife. And again,
Mhm.
I don't want to speculate about any kind of physical affair or whatever, but it certainly does
Mhm.
seem like there are certain women she was taken with, and may have sought to sort of collect them
Yeah.
for her own
Well, I
purposes.
read that there was actually a picture scene of the 2 of them holding hands. So that's
Yeah,
pretty
again, it wouldn't
obvious.
surprise me, but
Yeah.
I just don't want to I don't want to over stigmatize. Women can hold hands, and it can, human
Mhm.
beings can hold each other's hands, and
Yeah.
there's nothing sexual about it, and there's nothing untoward about it. Human
Mhm.
beings need physical affection, and I think that we should get more of it in a platonic way. So I don't want to over
Mhm.
stigmatize. But do I think it's possible? Yeah, of course I think it's possible. I think
Oh,
it's possible
so
that
is
any two
Jody
people can.
married? I
Huh?
haven't heard it.
So
Oh,
she was married. She
oh, she
was
says
married. Mhm.
divorced since the 90s.
Divorced since the
Okay.
90s, and, the reports say that she put her husband through hell, that she
Mhm.
was really, really, in really terrible to him, that she
Mhm.
made the divorce very difficult. Apparently, she did not want to get divorced.
Uh-huh.
That's and this is all just what I've heard. I don't know if
Yeah.
any of it's true, but
Mhm.
I've heard that she did not want to get divorced, and when he insisted on the divorce, she really did everything she could to rake him through the
Oh,
mud.
oh,
Take the
okay.
kids away, made accusations against him, basically did to her own former husband what she's been doing to all these other husbands.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Well, so why is it that the kids were at Jody's house? I mean, were they no longer living at that nice big house that they previously were in?
so that's one of the things that nobody knows for 100% sure why they were at Jody's. Kevin Franke
Mhm.
apparently, allegedly, according to him through his lawyer, did not know that they were there. They were in a place called Jody's house is in a place called Ivins, I believe is the
Mhm.
town, and it's in southern Utah. And they lived hours away, more in like central Utah. And he
Mhm.
allegedly had no idea that she was apparently living with Jody for a time.
Mhm.
Like, she and the children were all living in that place with Jody,
Oh.
and, allegedly. And, so, yeah, nobody really knows for sure, but what we do again, the Mormon Stories podcast, had an interview with Jesse, who is the child of Jody's brother.
Yeah.
And, Jesse, some of the things that Jesse was talking about sort of leads us to believe that Jody had left the kids, or I'm sorry, that Ruby had left the kids in Jody's care, because Jody may have said something to her like, I'll take care of disciplining the kids, or whatever, because that's what she did, with Jesse and Jesse's parents.
Mhm.
Apparently, Jesse was just left one day, went to visit with their parents, and then parents went home and just left Jesse there.
Oh, how
And
weird.
yeah,
Mm.
and then from that point, Jody, and Jesse is I use Jesse uses they them
Yeah,
pronouns.
I saw that on
So
your video.
I,
So,
if there's anybody in here who doesn't know that, it can sound weird sometimes
yeah.
for it to be like
So
they.
she's like a tattoo artist in her mid-20s now who ran away because she couldn't deal with all the emotional abuse
Yeah, so they
from
were
Jody.
living with Jody. They had
Mhm.
been sort of given up guardianship to Jody, and they did run away and were homeless for a little while. And um and then, like, I guess ended up living with their grandparents after that, and
Mhm.
were not given back to Jody's care, and now they are, yeah, in their early 20s.
Mhm.
And, um, and but all of the things that they talked about, being duct taped, being starved,
Yeah.
sounds exactly like what was going on
Yeah,
here.
being forced to write confessional letters about all
Exactly.
sorts of bad things that they might not have even done,
Yeah,
but being
exactly.
forced to confess.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
talk a lot about that in my video. Um yeah, I just don't I think that that's exact personally, I feel like that's the most likely scenario is that Ruby just that Jody said, "Hey, just let me handle the kids' discipline or whatever.
Mhm.
I can straighten him out."
Like she's some sort of expert. She sounds like some sort of like shady televangelist from what little I saw of her, like a video of her just talking, like she
Yeah.
seems so full of herself, like some phony,
She seems
charlatan. Yeah.
completely unhinged, and I
Yeah.
know that everybody says that she brainwashed Ruby, but I think Ruby was already like that. I think that this is one of those situations
Mhm.
where 2 people, and again, this is just my opinion, but 2 people who already had a sadistic bent kind of, met each other, and it
Mhm.
was a match made in hell, you know? I
Mhm.
think that that's why Ruby ended up being one of the faces of connections, just like Jody. You know, Jody's been doing this forever. She's been doing this with multiple other couples. We've never seen another person on her you know what I mean? A
Yeah.
co-host, and almost equal in this sort of partnership.
Mhm.
Nobody else has done that, and she's done this to dozens of families allegedly.
Yeah.
So, why Ruby? Well, I think she found her match, right? I think that she
Mhm.
found somebody who was willing to be just as, sadistic and unhinged as she was,
Mhm.
and to be okay with that, and
Mhm.
that's why Ruby got the special treatment. Ruby got the number 2 chair, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, they were a match.
Yeah.
But
Again, that's just my opinion. That's just
yeah,
what I
that's our
see.
opinion, but in those clips that I did see of, Ruby being sort of mean to her kids or threatening to chop off the kid's favorite toy's
Oh,
head or
yeah.
whatever. I was like, good Lord, what's wrong with this lady? She's like gleeful and sticking a camera up in front
Yeah.
of her little kid, the 5-year-old or however old the kids were. But I'm
Yeah.
just like, that's horrible. And it took place every day, I'm sure, with her bullying them and trying to force them to do certain things for the camera, never giving them privacy.
Mhm.
And she just has this really weird, phony attitude about it. It's just kind of sad that 2 million plus people actually wanted to watch that crap.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting because I do think a lot of people hate watch that kind of thing, you know? And I always I do my best to discourage people, when we do talk about these kinds of channels and stuff like that. I always discourage people from going there and giving them hate.
Mhm.
Because you know as well as I do, especially on a platform like YouTube or Instagram or anything, they don't care if you thumbs the video down. They don't care if your comment is a hate comment. It's all engagement and it
Mhm.
all gives them attention. So, of that 2.3 million subscribers, if 1 million of those subscribers are only subscribed so that they can go and say, "You're a psychopath. I can't believe you're doing that to those
Yeah.
kids," that's still just
Yeah, it's still
bumping up their
bumping the
profile.
YouTube algorithm. Yep.
Yeah.
We know about that as content creators ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and I think that a lot of
Yeah.
people don't necessarily realize that. They think somehow if they thumbs down the video or something like that, that YouTube's gonna deplatform and that's not the case. It's all just engagement.
Mhm.
YouTube does not care if you're watching because you love it or because you hate it. They only care
Yeah.
that you're watching because they just want you to see the advertisements, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
Um, so unless something is really going against community standards, they don't care whether you like it or you hate it,
mhm.
and I always suggest to people, look, the best thing to do when you see something you dislike, if it breaks community guidelines, report it. If
Mhm.
it doesn't break community guidelines, just ignore it.
Yeah,
You know,
don't watch it. Don't
do not
subscribe.
engage with it at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the best way to make it go away. And
Mhm.
also, if you can find out what kind of sponsorships
Mhm.
those people are getting, You know, if they're being sponsored by Huggies and they're being sponsored by Grove Collaborative and they're being, you know, whatever these companies are, don't do business with those companies. And maybe let those companies know, hey, I noticed that you support, you know, you're a sponsor of Ruby Franke's channel. And I just want you to know that this is the kind of thing she does. And I will not be buying your products as long as you sponsor her. Enough people do that. There won't
Yeah.
be any money for it. And, you know, there won't be any money in it for them. There's
Mhm.
no money in it. They'll stop doing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well, that brings to
capitalism.
mind, have you heard of Eugenia Cooney? She's
Oh,
like
yes.
this totally starved, skeletal looking young woman that
Yeah, she's been on
has
YouTube a long
tons.
time.
Yeah, she's had tons of followers. And once in a while, I read about it where people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's still alive. And look at these like sad videos. But, you know, there are people that like to watch her moving heavy objects or dancing around and trying to
Yeah,
act sexy or something. I'm like, that's disgusting. You know, I don't want to
yeah.
watch that at all. It's
She clearly
creepy.
needs help, you know,
Yeah.
she's struggled with this for a long time, but she's not open about having anorexia, and I think that that's part of the
Yeah.
problem. She tells people she's just fine,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
whatever.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
starting to look like the mother probably is enabling this,
Yeah.
and,
The mom likes it, the attention. Yeah.
yeah, and, you know, people have been worried about her, so most of the people who follow her, you know, she's been on YouTube for, like, 15 years or something. She's
Whoa.
OG YouTuber. OG,
Oh, I had
and,
no idea.
she's
Yeah.
been on a long, long time.
Mhm.
But also, I think that it's interesting, there's a lot of people, movement, they call it pro-ana, and it
Oh,
means pro-anorexia,
oh,
and these are people who believe that anorexia is a lifestyle choice, not a mental illness,
okay.
and that, people who choose to live an anorexic lifestyle should be supported. And so there are quite a lot of people, of that way of thinking that are supporters of Eugenia Cooney because she's out there
Mhm.
proving, "Look, I've been anorexic for decades, and I'm still alive, and look,
What?
I can move this heavy object," and all of these
Seriously?
things. Yeah, it's really sad,
Oh,
but apparently she's recently stopped uploading, and there's been some information that she may have been forced into care.
okay.
So she's been to rehab and stuff before, but I think that everybody's pulling for her because she really is a sweet girl. She's just obviously very troubled.
Okay. Well,
And
so she's actually over 30. I had no
yeah,
idea. I thought
yeah,
she was like maybe like 20 something,
it's hard
early
to tell,
20s.
right?
Yeah,
Because
because she's so skinny.
she's not developed normally because she's been
Yeah.
anorexic since she was a teenager, so she's not developed properly. But yeah, I mean, I'm 36 and
Oh,
I don't think that she's much younger than me. So
oh my gosh. Okay.
um yeah, but it's really sad. I hope she gets some help. I do kind of follow her story here and there just because she's so ubiquitous with YouTube. You know, I'm sort of the
Yeah.
YouTube generation.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So getting back to YouTube though,
Yeah.
so what's in store for your channel? What do you hope to show?
Um, so I'm starting I always say we because I think of my channel as being me and my
We.
subscribers.
Yeah.
Even
Uh-huh.
though it's just me. I don't have a team of people. When I say we, I mean myself and the people who watch me.
Mhm.
So we're getting into the Halloween content. I always like to make some
Mhm.
Halloween themed content around October. So
Oh,
I have a video that will be up this weekend actually, and it involves it's actually another ongoing case. I figured we let the
mhm.
floodgates open, so let's go.
Yeah.
But involves egging,
Oh,
which is a
okay.
pretty common Halloween prank.
Yeah.
And but as it turns out, lots of people get killed and horribly injured because of egging every year. So we are
Oh.
going to talk about this recent case in Georgia where a man was killed after an egging of his house, not his
Oh.
house, a friend's house, and
Mhm.
also I just talk about sort of this dangerous thing, and then I will also be talking about a case called the Greenbrier Ghost. That's kind of
Oh,
a vintage case. A
yeah.
man was convicted of murder because of a ghost. So
What? Okay, I haven't heard of that case.
it's
Yeah,
a really unique one. So,
yeah, sounds
um,
interesting because I always like hearing about these like unusual types of cases or cases that went unsolved
yeah,
for a long time.
yeah.
Yeah,
And in
yeah.
October, I like to change it up a little and do something that has some sort of spooky mystery quality to it or somehow involves Halloween, like egging, which is such a typical Halloween prank.
Yeah.
And I'll probably have another one because they're going to be, I like to do like kind of a few shorter videos.
Mhm.
So these are going to be somewhat shorter videos around the 20-minute mark. And then I'm hoping to have a third one too. I haven't quite figured that out yet. And then after that, we'll just continue. I may end up revisiting the Frankie case. We'll have to see. But
Oh,
there's some
yeah,
other
you should.
other
Because
interesting things out there. So
yeah, because so many people came to your channel because of Ruby Frank, so you should
yeah.
do at least like 2 or 3 more. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I
I was
probably will. I'm hoping that by the end of October, we have a couple of good solid
mhm,
updates to where I can actually, maybe make a whole video out of it. I had also considered maybe dedicating a whole video to dangerous family vlog channels and ones that have been taken down because of abuse and things like
mhm,
that, because it does seem to be a topic that people are interested in and that
mhm.
a lot of people feel passionately about. So
Yeah,
maybe that
cool.
too. But I've
Yeah,
got a list about this long of different cases that I want to cover. So we'll
mhm.
just be continuing to work down the list and
Sure. There's no
um,
shortage of all these like sordid cases that have happened over the last like 30, 40 years or so.
yeah, absolutely. And I do ask people, I haven't asked people for a long time, but I do like it when people drop into my comments and if they have a case that they feel passionate about or that they'd like to hear my take on, that they drop me a comment. I read all
Mhm.
my comments and just suggest a case to me.
Cool. Well, so let me suggest that you should get into the Dan Markel case because it's really heating up now.
Yeah,
Charlie
I've been seeing your
Adelson,
stuff about it.
yeah, his former brother-in-law is going to be tried for murder, for conspiring to murder him, and
Oh,
the trial is starting in about 2 weeks. So
oh my
that's going to
gosh.
be really exciting. I'm actually going to go down to Tallahassee
Oh
to
my
cover it
gosh.
a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
wow, that's exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll have to get
Yeah.
caught up. I hadn't actually heard about that case until I saw
Okay.
you covering it. So I need to
Yeah.
get into that because it does sound really interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question, if I may,
Sure.
before we finish up
Uh-huh.
here. I, as from the perspective, from a legal perspective, and I know you primarily do divorce
Yeah, these
law,
days.
but
Yeah.
from a legal perspective, when we're looking at Kevin Franke and the
Mhm.
fact that he and Ruby were not divorced, he had complete legal responsibility to his children and all
Mhm.
of that. If they were to decide to bring charges against him, would you have
Mhm.
any idea what his kind of legal responsibility to the kids might be, given that there was no divorce?
Well, he still has a responsibility not to abuse his kids.
Well, for
So,
sure, for
yeah.
sure.
So, I
But
mean, from a
what about
criminal,
abandonment, like parental
no,
abandonment?
I mean, well, how did they end up splitting up? Was it him just ditching the family, or was it the therapist telling him to go away?
Allegedly,
Mhm.
Jody told him that he needed to move out because he was damaging the family, and
Mhm.
then proceeded to tell him not to have any contact with Ruby or the children unless she was with them. And he allegedly, again, this is according to him through his
Mhm.
lawyer, continued to attend men's groups, like men's group therapy facilitated by Jody
Mhm.
Hildebrandt, while he was not being allowed to speak to his children and did not know. So I didn't know if there was any precedent to say, well, if your wife is keeping the children from you and you're still married,
Mhm.
you are legally responsible for them still. So could he be charged
No, that
along with
doesn't work
her?
with criminal charges. They would still
Okay.
have to have evidence that he actually abused the children
Okay. Okay.
or endangered them. So
Sure.
just being a jerk with a YouTube channel is not going to be enough for child abuse.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, but from I mean, because I'm thinking of it more in terms of a child custody situation. Like
Mhm.
we don't even know if he wants custody of the kids or if the kids even want to be with their father. It sounds like the kids don't even want to be with him
Yeah,
anyway.
so according to his lawyer, he wants custody of the kids. That's his
Ah,
primary focus, is to get custody of those kids back.
mhm,
He's putting most of the blame onto Jody. He's not really saying much about Ruby. He's basically saying he's cutting off contact with her. He's apparently not having contact with her while she's in jail, probably to save. But again, I'd like to see divorce papers, like before we give these kids back, maybe I'd like to see him file for divorce and say, okay, my wife's nuts, and I'm going to make sure that I'm protecting my children from
Yeah.
her. And we haven't really seen that either.
Yeah, because that is usually a condition where one of the spouses has been charged with child abuse, is that the other parent has to also agree to protect the kids and not have the kids around that abuser, because if they do, then the kids can be taken away again. So that's happened to some people, like acquaintances that I've known. So yeah, so somebody's asking, well, what about neglect? Yeah, but once again, it's like, is it really from a legal perspective? I don't think it's criminal child neglect if he left because a therapist told him to.
Sure.
Because there are plenty of deadbeat dads. They're not charged with crimes. They're neglecting their kids, but that's probably not a crime just to move away because you're having marital problems.
But it may influence the court's decision as to whether or not they give the kids to him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the kids are definitely way old enough to express a preference and speak with the judge, because at least where I practice here, typically if both parents agree in a custody case, then the children could potentially speak privately with the judge to say what their preferences are. Yeah.
So where I'm at in Indiana, you have to be 13. The judge will not take consideration until 13. And so in this situation, we have two kids. I don't know what the laws in Utah are, but in this situation, we have like a 16, a 14, a 12, and a 10-year-old. But the 16-year-old certainly is well old enough that they should put her wherever she requests to go. And I would imagine that they'll probably just put the other kids wherever she goes.
Yeah, I think so too. But also the older children who are adults, they should be able to also potentially testify too, because they're adults. So
Well, Sherry definitely showed up to the court hearing that ended up not happening, but she showed up there. And I have wondered a little bit if she might try to petition for custody. It would not be unheard of for courts to give a 20-year-old sibling custody of her younger siblings if they didn't have anybody else. So
yeah. Well, hopefully there's some money there that can be gotten from the parents.
Who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows? Kevin, I believe, has come out and said something about not knowing anything about any money because Ruby was in control of all of that. And I just find it so hard to believe because Mormonism is such a patriarchal religion.
Yeah, and he's a professor. He's a professional. He's no head. Yeah.
And he works at Brigham Young. They're clearly very active in their church. And I think the Mormons have a word for this head of the household. They call him I can't remember, prophecy holder or something like that. Like they are the man of the house is considered, at least to my understanding, is sort of considered the head of the household in the same way that the bishop is considered the head of their church, and like things like that. All things are supposed to come through him. And so I'm like, well, are you a Mormon or aren't you? Because you're sort of trying to abdicate. You're trying to pretend you're a good Mormon, but you're also trying to abdicate all of your responsibility as a husband and a father, which seems to be the antithesis of Mormon doctrine. So I don't know. It's a little inconsistent in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, hey, Mona is asking when the next hearing is.
So I had heard that it was sometime this month, but now they're saying that they don't have it. That the last I heard, they don't have anything scheduled. They were supposed to have it a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago. And then they asked for a continuance because the lawyers, Ruby and Jody's lawyer, said that there's so much discovery to go through that they just don't have time. And I don't know for sure, but my guess
I got it. Okay. Yeah, it says the court and attorneys scheduled a pretrial hearing for October 17th.
October 17th. Okay, so that is still on there.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the last I had heard. And then I heard somebody else saying that had been canceled, but it looks like
Oh,
that is October
okay.
17th. So
Yeah, this is just, well, but this could be outdated info
that's
too.
very true.
So who knows
There's
what's
going to be a
really.
lot of movement in this. There's a lot of moving parts, and we don't even know, are we looking at a trial together, separate? I mean, none of that's been worked out yet.
Mhm.
And, it'll be really interesting going forward. So I'm hoping by the end of October, I'll have my October videos done. And hopefully by the end of October, we've had some kind of hearing. There's a little more, and I can do a little update for everybody. So
Yeah, that would be great because it's already kind of stressing me out just being up to date with this Markel Charlie Adelson case
Mhm.
because so much is going on and these
That's
court
the
dates
thing with
keep getting
ongoing
thrown.
cases. They move so fast, and it's like, and
Yeah.
you probably have a way better head for that than I do because you're at least legally trained, you know?
Yeah, well, but what's frustrating is even in any sort of court case, there's usually a lot of dates that get postponed.
Mhm.
So it's frustrating, if, especially, like any sort of trial, like the Sarah Boone case has been postponed. Who knows how many times, like
Forever.
5, 6 times. She's that woman that stuck her boyfriend in the suitcase and wouldn't let him out and
That
allegedly beat him.
she's a
Yeah,
nutmeg.
yeah, she
It's so
totally is.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been watching that stuff on Deep Dive True Crime. So
Uh-huh.
that's a great channel. So, okay, well, it's way over an hour.
It
So thank
is.
you so much. It's been great to talk to you. It's
Oh,
nice to
you
meet
too.
you this way and all this interesting commentary and learning about
Yes.
new cases and stuff. It's just really interesting and fun in a way. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for inviting me to come on. This was so much fun, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to come do this with you anytime. So
Okay, sure. Yeah, so please read up about Dan Markel if you
I
do have
will.
time, and then if you feel well enough to come and talk about it, or you want to do your own video, then that's cool too.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to trade next time. Maybe I should do a
Yeah.
live stream on my channel and you should come
Oh,
on.
sure. Yeah, I'd love to talk about it because most of the people out here watching on my channel, they're here because of the Markel
Yeah.
Charlie Adelson content. So yeah,
Yeah,
we're all kind
definitely.
of obsessed with that case because it's going on now.
Well, I'm
So,
gonna have to look into it.
yeah.
It sounds really interesting. So next time I talk to
Mhm.
you, I'll have educated myself.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Okay, well, I guess we both better go and do all our family
Yeah,
obligations and stuff. So,
absolutely. All right.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Bye-bye. And
thank
thanks
you.
everybody for
Have a
being
great
here.
weekend. Take care.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.